So, hi, my name is Brian Fan. I'm a musician, and I had a particular problem that I couldn't solve. So I grew up playing music my whole life. My parents were the usual Asian parents and got me playing piano when I was 5. And growing up in New York City, it was kind of, you just start playing. And I got into a music school when I was 8 years old. I got into Juilliard and went there for around 8 years. And pretty much spent my whole childhood playing and learning piano. And I can pretty much play almost anything on the piano. I can think it, I can play it, and I spent thousands of hours of my childhood practicing. And I always, though, ever since I heard Pink Floyd, wanted to play the guitar. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to learn how to play guitar. It's just a matter of time. And so, I was so busy with school and with piano and this and that finally I moved to Saudi Arabia when I was 20 years old. And I went to work for Procter & Gamble in brand management. And I said, I'm going to buy a guitar and take it with me to Saudi Arabia. And I'm going to learn, because there's nothing else to do there, and I'm going to learn how to play guitar. I didn't learn, right? Never spent the time, just never did it. Another set of years went by. I said, one day I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. And it so happened I moved back to the US, and I went to work at Microsoft and some other places. And then I moved back to the Middle East again a couple of years ago. I moved to Dubai. And I said, I'm going to learn how to play guitar again. And in the summertime in Dubai, all of the families go home, and all of the husbands stay in Dubai and tend to work there, and they just tend to go drinking and partying and whoring. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to do all this entire summer is learn how to play guitar. And who is going to be able to do this, more advantageously than someone who already knows music theory, than someone who has spent thousands of hours practicing and knows what it takes to actually get good. And so I spent the entire summer, turned my house into a guitar studio, went home, didn't eat any food other than takeout food or delivery food, and all I did was practice guitar 3-4 hours a night during the weekdays, and on the weekends I'd practice like 6, 8, 10 hours a day on the weekends. And after the summer was over, I said, hey, I'm pretty good. I can play like 6, 8, 10 songs decently. And so I was in a band, and when the band came back, I said, instead of bringing my keyboard to the rehearsal, I'm going to bring my guitar. And so as soon as the first song, I'm going to bring my guitar out, I'll show these guys what I can do, and had my guitar, and as soon as the rhythm section kicked in, the drums and the bass section kicked in, immediately I started falling behind. Immediately I couldn't keep up with the speed at which the chords were changing. And I was like, but I could do this at home. But when you're playing music at home, if you can't hit that chord perfectly, you take a little split-second artistic license, a little slower, and you hit that chord. But when you're playing in a band, ain't nobody's slowing down for your sorry ass if you can't hit that B minor chord on time. And so then I started playing faster and taking shortcuts, and I started making mistakes. And after 2 songs, I said, the 500 hours, 600 hours I just practiced this summer is nowhere near enough to build the muscle memory to just be able to just play. You need to practice like 2,000 hours to play. And then my family came back, and I had no more time to practice, and my house went from being a guitar studio back to being a house, and I hung up my guitar, and I said, geez, I never expected that I would be one of the 90% of the people who try to learn guitar, 90% quit in the first year, and how I, Juilliard-trained piano player, would be one of the 90%. So I moved back to the US and was looking for work, and then I started taking guitar lessons again and started thinking, technology has made it so much easier to do so many things. Like photography used to be really hard. It would be manually controlling the physics of light through manual controls to actually take a photograph. And if those of you remember manual cameras from the 70s, you would remember that it took years of training and practice to actually get good at taking photographs. And if you took if you weren't any good, 22 out of 24 photographs would be horrible. So, that's all, yeah, and it costs a lot too. That's all changed, right? And so music today, playing a guitar is like you're manually controlling the physics of sound frequencies through your fingers. You are taking 6 strings, and you are manually shortening a string by pushing your finger against a piece of steel and plucking the remainder of the string. And you're doing that on 6 strings, and so you're learning these Byzantine sort of finger positions. And I said, well, we've got electronics today, right? Why do we have to actually manually control physics when you can have the intention of, I know what kind of chords I want to play, And why can't I just actually divorce the physics from that? And so that got me thinking, and it said, okay, well, why don't we make an electronic guitar? And that's what we did. So let me put my guitar together. It actually, the neck comes apart for travel. And so this is a prototype. This is a third generation prototype of a guitar. It comes on. Let me just put the strap on. And so we've got this guitar, and let me turn it on. Okay, so we said, okay, we can make it act like a guitar. So this guitar can play just like a standard guitar. Right, so if you know how to play a standard guitar, you can make it play like a standard guitar. But we said most people can't play a standard guitar, right? And they just want to play music. And so how do we change the user interface of the fretboard so that we make it a lot easier to play? So we used music theory, and we said we can actually, most songs that people want to play songs mostly. And the songs they want to play tend to be in what's called a key and a scale, right? Which is, say, like E major or D minor or G blues. And so we said, well, we can set the guitar in a key and a scale. And so, right, so I just set the guitar to E major. So this is a different way to play that we invented based on scales. So it's now an E major, and now all of the chords in the E major scale are available to you on the guitar on the bottom row. Right, so those are the chords in the E major scale. So if you're playing a song in E major, pretty much all the chords are available to you. Now, you know, you can play some simple things like right, and so even if you have no knowledge of music, the fact that there's music theory baked into the guitar means that you can just pick this up and start playing right away, and you can pretty much play. When we go, you know, now you notice there's 6 buttons here, and what we do is we have different kinds of chords, and so the root note of the chord within a fret stays the same. So these are all, these are all E chords. You can play a major chord, a power chord, a suspended chord, a major 7th, a dominant 7th, and a minor chord, right? So it's kind of like a auto harp meets a guitar meets a transposer, all in one, right? And so what this basically means is you can do things like, let me see. Okay, I'm going to change it to F minor here. Oops, sorry. These are encoders in here. Sorry about that. Okay, so that I've just changed that. So you could play, if you have no knowledge of music or how to play guitar, could play something like this, like I would say in around 20, 25 minutes of practice. Right, I mean, that basically is something that you could do. I mean, what I wanted to do was this. Do that in, say, an electric guitar sound, well, that's a... So technically how this works is it's electronic. The strings are essentially steel wires that are around this long, and they go on a plastic frame, and there are piezoelectric transducers on the side of it that essentially have the signals, and we capture basically what our velocity, how strong you pluck, determines the volume of what you play. And so you can play softly, or you can play softly or loudly, and it'll change the volume. Over here on the neck, we have a bunch of buttons, and underneath the buttons, we have a whole silicone layer with a bunch of carbon switches on it. It's very similar to, say, a computer keyboard or to a TV remote control. And there's a circuit board that's got contacts, and if 1 or 2 of the contacts per button gets activated, there's a continual scan of all the buttons. It basically detects what buttons is pressed. We've got audio samples of guitar sounds in the guitar. So we've got 4 different guitars in it, and so we've got every single note recorded at 8 different volume levels. And so if you play it, it just knows it fetches the right sound and plays it. And we've got a 20-watt amp and a 20-watt speaker. This one is running off an Arduino Mega, and there's a second board in it that's got an STM32 chip on it. We're actually making this. Right now, we're casting parts using urethane casting and making the electronics at a PCB with a PCB company. But basically, the company's called Magic Instruments. We ran an Indiegogo campaign. We pre-sold 1,500 guitars, around $500,000 worth of guitars, and now we're working at building the guitars. We've also got a mobile app that has a catalog of popular songs, and then you can essentially play whatever popular song you want using the mobile app.